tomorrow. Temperatures getting down into the 40s overnight. 57 our high tomorrow and 40 for the low. Noticeably cooler tomorrow compared to yesterday and today. Catch Sean Hannity on your drive home from work. He's on every weekday from 3 to 6 on Nooga Radio News Talk 92.7 and 95.3 HD4. That's your fast forecast now.
Nooga Radio, digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree? Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. News Talk Nooga Radio. Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
We argue for local economy and the free market. This is David Tulis, your host here, and having hopefully an free broadcast on 92.7 and 95.3 HD4. I have to work on that, and I know that I'm far from perfect in that very human fault of not being quiet when I should when I have no words. I should not make any sound at all. We argue that you should love your neighbor and buy local. Make sure you like us on Facebook. By the way, like us. That's a way we can make some gain in the digital marketplace. The vacuity, the emptiness, the wasteland of the digital marketplace, the digital world. And it's at Nooga Radio, by the way. That's the page, Nooga Radio. And also, we're live on YouTube at Hot News Talk Radio. That's our company is Hot News Talk Radio. It's hot, it's news, it's talk. We're the Sean Hannity station. And also CBS. And this show is about 5 years old. I do thank you for giving me just a couple minutes of your time. We have an interest in kind of getting going and getting moving on the news of the day and the outlook. Well, the outlook is generally very positive. I want you to know that I have a very, very positive outlook, though I have short term a bleak one. And Senator David Perdue, in a statement repeated at Chattanoogans.com this morning, says a little bit why. And Bob Corker has made statements similar when he's not bashing President Trump. He has said at other times when he's reflective on the state of the government, statements like this. Perdue says, Washington has got to wake up. Our national debt hit $20 trillion a few weeks ago, and no one blinked an eye. As a country, we're losing the right to do the right thing. In other words, to do the right thing is a right. It's not a duty. He says it's a right. Washington's inability to get its financial house in order is causing us to lose the ability to pay for all the things we need to do. Well, okay, that's an iffy thing that we need to do anything. 4 words not in Washington's vocabulary. We cannot afford it. Unless we solve our debt crisis, he says, we won't be able to deal with emergency situations, invest in our infrastructure, or fund any of our national priorities. This is Federal Senator David Perdue of Georgia. This can be fixed, but Washington must develop the political will to fix this budget process and to deal with the exploding debt. Notice how he ends on a positive note. He has this gloomy review, and then it says it can be fixed. Well, that is a bit of hyperbole as well, that it can be fixed. No, it can't. It cannot be fixed. The system simply cannot and will not be fixed. It will not be fixed. It's systemically designed. It's designed as a system. It is ontologically required to do what is happening now. It can't not do it, okay? It can't not do it. The system, the government system with all the hangers-on, all the myriad, multi-million particular interests that drive the system to the edge cannot stop. No one has a big enough view to say we have simply got to cut the budget by 50%. No one will do that, right? We didn't do that in Chattanooga when we had the chance to cut the school budget, but instead we listened to and obeyed and revered the Hamilton County Commission, which voted to raise taxes, or it was a keeping the elevated gain from a property reassessment is what it was, but it was effectively a tax increase upon you, my listener here in Hamilton County, and you're paying more for the cartel. In a day when we have Khan Academy, YouTube, and the internet, we are paying as if knowledge and material for study was rare and expensive. We're paying for a school system that has a cost of more than $10,000 per child. And it should be $2,500 at the most, maybe $1,500 at the most to pay for the educational services for a student. But we can't have that. We can't have a free market. No, we have to have the state fulfill. It's this this mandate without a clear origin, except perhaps in the German philosophers like Fichte and some of the others, who were great, like Thomas Carlyle, great statists, great nationalists, great triumphalists for the powers of the state. People who gave us the right wing, gave us the left wing. Those people, they're the ones who are behind the state, and the state serves that interest. It serves that whole group of progressive, you could say, progressive claims upon the world at large and upon the American life and culture. Well, this is David Tulis. I'm a skeptic of this, and I offer the Minority Report. Now, I wanted to mention just briefly about the national. We're mentioning David Perdue's comments. You can read them if you're just joining us. You can read them at Chattanoogans.com. It's just a paragraph, but I think it shows a bit of it's a bit of hubris too, even in condemning the operation of the national government, to think that it can be fixed. No, it can't be fixed. It just really can't. And so therefore I would say your best option is local economy, and that means divesting nationally and investing locally. Charles Hugh Smith is one of my favorite writers. He has a great little column. It kind of one that almost passes notice because it doesn't have a lot of that fiery language that he is known for, and it's about Stagnation Nation, and he's trying to explain why there's not going to be a lot of pressure from most people to buy Bitcoin. Well, they don't have the means to buy Bitcoin, which is a speculative instrument at best, though it's very much on the rise right now. I have a son who's a white hat hacker, and out of UTC, about which he has not good things to say. He got a job in Atlanta with a company called Protivity, which provides hacker protection. And so he's the white hat hacker that goes in and tries to penetrate and break in, sometimes using subterfuges in his person. He arrives pretending to be somebody else. So he's very young, 22 or 23 years old, and already involved in that. And he has a Bitcoin or two, and those have all gone up 4 or 5 times in value, and almost more than the gold coins I bought when I was in my 30s, right? And so it's but what is it that he bought? He bought an algorithm that functions in the marketplace and has people drawing themselves to it. But most people can't buy a Bitcoin or invest in it, and Smith points out why. Well, and that's because their wealth is locked up. It's locked up, as he points out, in houses, insurance policies, pension accounts, and deposits. And that much of that is wealth that is not really wealthy. It's there. You can use it on death. You can use it perhaps on retirement. If you're you can get a home equity loan. You can the very end of the economy is when the home equity loan becomes a common thing, and people for cash put their house in hawk and have a nice $115,000 fund for repairing the sidewalk and putting some new bushes in and maybe taking a vacation. They've got nothing left except the house, and that now has been converted into an obligation. And the wealthy, though, are different. That top 5%, that top 1%, which is a real group of people, and for them the economy is going very, very well. And Smith, again, the website is of2minds.com. I highly recommend it. I read his work very carefully. It's called of2minds.com. Just jot that down, and make sure you go there. It's free, okay? Though if I were really a gracious man, as I'm trying to be, I would probably send him some money in thanks. But he has a graphic showing the ownership of things in business equity. Again, that's ownership of a business that creates cash flow for you. That's ownership equity. The top 1% have 63% of ownership equity, right? The bottom 90% have only 31%. And now going to principal residences, which is what we, the middle class here in Chattanooga, have, right? We have our houses. We may have a rental property. Of course, a rental property is a business. and creates a cash flow. Principal residences, the top 1% have only 10%. The top 1% have 63% of business equity, meaning income producing, cash flow producing properties, and only 10% of the principal residence equity. But the bottom 90%, it has 59%, almost 60% of the equity in housing. And again, that's important to note, because you and I, if we're middle class, that's what we have. We have an asset maybe worth 100,000, 150,000, maybe 220,000, as inflation makes those numbers mean less and less, and so you have to have more of them to account for the same value for property. But it doesn't create income, right? But if you have income, you can buy other income producing assets. So that's why we have in Chattanooga, we have the buyout of numerous apartment complexes which produce cash flow, and that's by people who either have cash, they have other businesses which fund their acquisitions, or they have debt, and they have obtained debt much more cheaply than you can get it, or your company can get it. The mean value of business equity is concentrated in the top 10% of families. He says, while the value of the top 10% biz equity dropped sharply in the global financial crisis of 2008 and 2009, it has recovered and reached new heights, while the value of the biz equity held by the bottom 90% has flattened. Houses are unproductive. Assets either produce income, they're productive, or they don't. Okay, or that means to say they're an unproductive asset. And that's where you and I are. You and I are there with unproductive assets. Now, speaking of productive assets, remember Enron, when it collapsed, it had a $63 billion loss. The auditors at Arthur Andersen had used loopholes in the law and various tricks to hide billions of dollars in bad deals and bad debts. Well, that's a small amount of money compared to what HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development. There's a report from the Office of Inspector General. It's not this is not a bit of fresh news, but I came across it. Just wanted to give you a sense of where the big money is. It's with the elites, and it's also with the government. There's so much money that is available and spent or misspent that the report says that $500 billion has been mislaid or misspent or can't be properly accounted for in what are called pervasive material errors, totaling nearly $520 billion. All told, the OIG reported this audit report contains 11 material weaknesses, 7 significant deficiencies, and 5 instances of noncompliance with applicable laws and regulations. However, just think about this. It's not that the money was lost, okay? It was just meant that it was spent in a way that you can't tell. Rest assured, okay, the money was still spent on a government program. So somebody in the government program got the money. We can feel better about it. We can be relieved that it wasn't just waste. It wasn't just stolen by some contractor, right? It may have been, but that contractor is part of that system and part of making it safe and holy and true and good. The corrected and restated consolidated financial reports made over $516 billion in corrections to the notes, another 3.4 to the notes, and another 3.4 billion to the financial statement. But even though the Inspector General appreciated HUD's efforts, according to the Conservative Tribune's accounting of this little scandal, the scathing report still calls for a substantial change to the department's internal accounting practices. We're all brought to you by Greg Sandwiches, by the way. Greg Sandwiches on East Brainerd Road. If you go to our chief sponsor, Nooganomics.com, you'll read today a couple things. I have a story out about Grenda Harmer, and it's a letter to me. I've been developing this correspondent with this very articulate man who's been in the prison at Wartburg for I think it's a 25-year sentence. He has 2.5 years left to go. And we have a correspondence because I want to have a view for my reader at Nooganomics.com into that life. And the main thing that I think of news value that has come from that is that there is there's a grand fraud going on in the Department of Corrections, and that is involving a jobs program for which inmates are paid. And Grenda Ray Harmer, I think he's 64. Says that there is no work. Okay, these are just people who are just paid for not doing the work, but the payment to the inmates is just a small add-on cost to the bulk, of which is there's a reimbursable somewhere from Nashville or from the taxpayers to course civic. That is something that's taking place in the prison system, a kind of charade of a job program for 2,000 people that doesn't exist. This is what Grenda Harmer is reporting. And also, if you go to Nooganomics.com, make note of my. I'm writing about the church in Chattanooga. I have been visiting churches with my family, and I'm asking some questions about Christianity, not doubting the genuine Christian faith of people in the churches in Chattanooga that we have visited, but asking about the pulpit and the argument made, and you might say whether the God presented is the big God or the small God. I think in many instances it is the small God, and so I'm asking the question about the small God or problem. And read that, and you'll see. I'm a journalist, okay? I'm a writer, and I'm a pro se litigant as well. In times past, have fought my own legal battles, and in fact got a Tennessee statute in Title 55 changed to account for my arguments. The General Assembly, without my having to make one political call, rewrote the law to account for what I had to say about that wicked statute. And so I do have an interest in things that are, you might say, earthy and worldly, but that's what I do. I write about the world as it is with suggestions on how things might be better. And so I'm questioning the pulpits in Chattanooga. Here we are at the 500th year of the Reformation, right? And I'm asking, what would a Reformation look like, and what would it take? And I'm trying to suggest to people, let's say, to the governors, let's say, at City Church or other churches that my family and I have visited. Here's what I would suggest would be the gospel, that more than going a little bit further than what we're hearing from you now. And take a look at that. It is it's kind of a long piece and not perhaps as organized as it should be. But you can see me in all my faults, and you can sure comment on it. And that's at Nooganomics.com. Nooganomics.com. Also, I'll mention another story in a minute, but something I wanted to kind of get off my chest, and that is the Tennessee Highwayman program. And I did a quick check this morning. I want to tell you what's happening in Alabama. And when police keep your stuff, Alabamians lose their property to a controversial. It was called a controversial practice. Controversial is such a bad word. It's such a boring term. Almost everything is controversial. That's why it's in the news, right? Don't say it's controversial. It could maybe call it disputed, but it's disputed only if people are there to dispute against the program, right? That would be hopefully Christian people. That would be legislators who say we have simply got to end the civil asset forfeiture program. What is Gerald McCormick doing? What is Todd Gardenhire doing? I know Todd Gardenhire has expressed a few things about that program against it. But will there be a reform? I don't believe a reform passed out of last year's General Assembly, but this year there's a new prospect for undoing this evil statute in the Tennessee Code. Last year, in 2016, there were 7,616 proceedings or cases, civil cases against people, or if not against the people, against the thing. Actions in rem, they're called. There's a legal fiction to have a lawsuit against an object, but that's what it is. An action against a thing. And we're going to seize this thing because of some connection that we allege, often without any evidence whatsoever, just a hunch, that there's a connection between it and the drug trade. $17,000 million in cash was seized by the Tennessee Highwayman program that the Republicans have maintained with the help of Democrats, and 3,636. Again, the number is 3,636 vehicles, according to a state legislator out of Knoxville, quoted by the Times Free Press in March. Vehicles that would be cars and trucks stolen by the Tennessee Highwayman program. And earlier this year, there was a story about how the feds chastised state government and its the Governor Haslam's Department of Safety for abuse of its seized money, to $112,614 spent between 2014 and 16 in catering lunches, retail food, banquet tickets, and the like, not proper, not police activity, under the equitable sharing arrangement that the good people have with with the folks in Washington. Frank Ranelli runs a computer shop in Ensley, Alabama. In 2010, he was raided by it was an armed SWAT team raid on a computer business, and it's a repair business. It's been in Ensley for more than 2 decades, and he was doing some paperwork when there were loud bangs on the door, and he answered it, and there were 20 officers from the Homewood and Mountain Brook police departments surrounding a store, some of them wearing flak jackets and carrying assault rifles. Now, this, if that happens to you, I hope you, my listener, are wise enough and prudent enough just to laugh. And just laugh. That's all you can do, is just howl at these people. Within moments, according to AL.com, a sergeant declared the room full of computers belonging to customers, right, and merchandise and other items as stolen goods. And then he ordered the officers to arrest them all. And so Ranelli was handcuffed. He was taken to the Homewood jail with 2 shop employees. And the cops confiscated 130 computers, most of which belonged to customers waiting for repairs, though some were for sale. The cops also seized the company's business servers and workstations and receipts and checkbooks. And they were acting on a tip from some person who was not to be relied upon. And that person said that FAR computers knowingly purchased goods stolen from homes. Well, nothing came from the case. The single charge of receiving stolen goods against Ranelli was dismissed after he showed that he had done all the proper things in the way of keeping a record of what he had in his store. But no, he hadn't gotten back these goods. This is 7 years ago, and this story is a new story, a fresh story. He still has not received his goods. Here's a quote. Here I was, a man, owned this business, been coming to work every day like a good old guy for 23 years, and I show up at work that morning. I was in there doing my books from the day before, and the police just effed my life, he says. That's a quote. Of course, the letters are blocked out. Sergeant John Carr, Homewood police spokesman, says the department really can't comment on any of that stuff in regards to the property because it's tied up in a civil lawsuit right now. And so this case is going on for years, and there's more this coming summer as this man tries to get back his goods. Think about the lost energy. Think about the lost capital. The service to clients, the expansion of Mr. Ranelli's business, right? He could have opened another store elsewhere across town. There's a quote from Joseph Tully, a criminal defense lawyer, and it says, long used in major criminal busts as a means to confiscate money and possessions obtained by illegal means, civil asset forfeiture affects thousands of Americans every year, and it is subject to more debate. And I hope you, my listener, take part in that debate. I want to know what you think, and I want your legislator to know what you think about this. It's a state crime that has very few people speaking against it because only a few thousand people are directly hurt by it. And these are people who are just running their lives, right? They don't have time to get involved in politics. They're barely making ends meet. So they all they can do is try to get back, they can't afford an attorney. It's a very complicated process. There are very short deadlines dealing with the DOS, the Department of Safety. In Nashville, a place I've been to, I've had hearings there. It's really hard to fight the system, Attorney Tully says. If it was a private citizen who stole your things, you could go get your things, or on the olden days, you could get your shotgun and pay the thief a visit and say, give me my stuff back. But you can't do that in this case because it's the police. This is David Tulis. And do you wonder why there's a lax sense in the marketplace? Do you wonder why people just can't get going? They just can't get going. There's a loss of spirit. There's a loss of VIP and them here in Chattanooga and Helmand County. And part of it is, I would account for, is that very thing, that there's just this uncertainty, this fear, and this dread. If you have that, if you don't have security of your assets, security of your life and property, security of your constitutionally God-given guaranteed rights, well, it's going to be hard to get up in the morning and go to work. David Tulis.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
Is your bathroom sink nearly clogged? Act now. Stop